Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Mandela Effect, why thousands of people share the same false memories. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. He was released in 1990 after 27 years of imprisonment, led South Africa through its democratic transition, served as president from 1994 to 1999, and died on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. These are facts, and yet thousands of people, independently, before comparing notes, share a vivid and confident memory of Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, of seeing the news coverage, of watching his funeral on television. In 2009, a paranormal researcher named Fiona Broome discovered that others shared her false memory of Mandela's prison death. She named the phenomenon the Mandela Effect. What she found, and what the internet rapidly amplified, was that shared false memories extend far beyond Mandela. The Berenstain Bears, thousands of people remember Berenstein No, I am your father. Thousands remember Luke, I am your father. The Monopoly man's monocle, the black tip on Pikachu's tail. In every case, the correct version is documented, verifiable, and unambiguous. And in every case, the false version is remembered with total confidence by large numbers of people who have never spoken to each other. Broome proposed that people who remember differently are from a parallel timeline. Cognitive scientists propose something less dramatic, but in some ways more unsettling. If your confident memories can be this wrong, what else are you misremembering? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Governments keep secrets. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, confirmed by declassified archives, freedom of information disclosures, and the confessions of officials long after the events in question. The United States government ran secret programs to test psychedelic drugs on unwitting civilians, MKultra, to spy on its own citizens, COINTELPRO, and to cover up nuclear testing incidents that killed American soldiers. The British government suppressed information about UFO encounters by military personnel for decades. The Soviet Union systematically falsified scientific data to maintain ideological conformity. None of this means that every government secret involves supernatural phenomena or alien contact. The reality of classified programs is almost always more mundane. Military technology being tested covertly, intelligence operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or simply the bureaucratic instinct to classify first and justify later. Most UFO sightings that turn out to have official explanations were classified aircraft. Most government denials of anomalous phenomena are straightforwardly honest. The phenomena being denied are simply not real. But the documented history of government secrecy has a practical effect on investigative credibility. When officials deny knowledge of events that witnesses describe in compelling detail, that denial cannot be taken at face value without independent corroboration. The proven track record of institutional concealment means that institutional denial, however authoritative it sounds, is not the same as evidence of absence. This complicates every modern mystery that touches on official narrative. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Mandela Effect. Why thousands of people share the same false memories is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Fiona Broome coined the term Mandela Effect in approximately 2009-2010 after discovering at a conference that other attendees shared her false memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. Mandela was released from Victor Verster prison on February 11, 1990, after 27 years. He served as President of South Africa from 1994 to 1999 and died on December 5, 2013, at age 95. The prison death memory is demonstrably, unambiguously false, and yet it is shared by a substantial number of people. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Berenstain Bears, a children's book series created by Stan and Jan Berenstain, has been published under the name Berenstain since the first book appeared in 1962. Copyright records, author interviews, publisher catalogs, and every physical copy of every book spell the name with an A. Nevertheless, large numbers of adults confidently remember the name as Berenstein with an E and report vivid childhood memories of the Ein spelling. The false memory is among the most widely documented examples of the Mandela Effect. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the line from the 1980 film The Empire Strikes Back, in which Darth Vader reveals his relationship to Luke Skywalker, is "No, I am your father." The commonly misquoted version, "Luke, I am your father," does not appear in the film. The misquotation is one of the most frequently cited Mandela Effect examples and illustrates a specific cognitive mechanism. The brain supplies a familiar name to make the sentence more contextually complete, even when the original contained no such name. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the Monopoly Man, the board game's mascot Rich Uncle Pennybags, has never worn a monocle in any edition of the game published since 1935. Thousands of people confidently misremember a monocle. Mr. Peanut, the Planters' mascot, does wear a monocle. Researchers have proposed that schema contamination, blending two similar wealthy old gentleman figures, may explain the false memory. The monocle example illustrates how memory fills gaps using plausible generic features rather than accurately stored specifics. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of social media dramatically amplified the Mandela Effect phenomenon after 2010. Communities on Reddit and dedicated websites allowed individuals who shared a false memory to find each other rapidly, reinforcing the sense that the shared memory must be accurate. Cognitive psychology predicts that social reinforcement strengthens false memories. Hearing others describe a memory in detail makes it more vivid and confident in one's own recall, regardless of whether the underlying memory is accurate. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus established through decades of experimental research that human memory is not a recording, but an active reconstructive process. Her misinformation effect experiments from 1974 onwards demonstrated that exposure to post-event information, a leading question, a suggestive description, a false account from a witness, reliably alters what people believe they originally perceived. The effect is robust, involuntary, and experienced with subjective confidence indistinguishable from accurate memory. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Mandela Effect. Why thousands of people share the same false memories. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that collective false memory driven by reconstructive cognition. Human memory fills gaps using schemas, prototypes, and plausible inferences rather than accurate storage, producing consistent errors across unconnected individuals exposed to the same cultural material. The Mandela Effect examples are specifically the kinds of memory that are most vulnerable to error. Logos, brand names, and famous quotations encountered frequently but never studied carefully. The main objection is not scientific, but experiential. The memories feel too vivid and specific to be fabricated. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that parallel universe quantum branching, people who remember events differently, are individuals who have crossed from an adjacent timeline in which those events occurred as remembered. Fiona Broome proposed this as the original explanatory framework. No quantum mechanical process allows macroscopic objects, including human beings, to cross between branch states. Quantum decoherence prevents it at biological scales. The hypothesis has no basis in physics and is not entertained in the scientific literature. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that online priming and social reinforcement create and amplify Mandela Effect examples after initial false memories arise independently through normal reconstructive processes. Once an internet community forms around a shared false memory, exposure to others' confident descriptions reinforces and elaborates individual memories, making the false version feel more real over time. Under this model, the Mandela effect is partly a social media phenomenon rather than solely a cognitive one. The internet is an unprecedented mechanism for distributing and reinforcing collective memory errors. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree, that is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Mandela effect, why thousands of people share the same false memories, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the misinformation effect research conducted by Elizabeth Loftus, replicated hundreds of times since the original 1974 studies, demonstrates that post-event suggestion reliably and measurably alters memory reports. In classic experiments, participants who received misleading information about a traffic accident remembered the accident differently from control participants, with full subjective confidence. fMRI studies show that true memories and false memories produce overlapping neural activation patterns. The brain does not tag false memories as false. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documentation of every cited Mandela effect example confirms the correct version in every case. Copyright records for Berenstain Bears, audio and screenplay for The Empire Strikes Back, original artwork and game manufacture records for the monocle-free Monopoly Man, death records, and biography for Nelson Mandela. No example of the Mandela effect has ever survived documentary verification. In every examined case, the correct version is unambiguously and exhaustively documented, while the remembered version has no documentary support. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed. Cognitive psychology research on schema-based memory error explains the specific patterns of Mandela effect examples. Brand names ending in Stein, Frankenstein, Einstein, Hammerstein are more common in cultural memory than Stein, making Stein ending the more plausible pattern completion for an unfamiliar name. Luke, I am your father adds a name that makes the sentence more memorable as a standalone quote. These are not random errors. They are predictable outputs of a schema-driven memory system operating on incomplete stored information. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Mandela Effect, why thousands of people share the same false memories. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Elizabeth Loftus's research on reconstructive memory and the misinformation effect has been foundational in legal reform of eyewitness testimony standards. Courts in multiple jurisdictions now instruct juries on the unreliability of confident eyewitness identification. The Mandela Effect is studied as a social and cognitive phenomenon, how false memories propagate, how internet communities reinforce them, and what the implications are for memory's role in personal identity and legal evidence. The parallel universe explanation has no scientific basis. The cognitive explanation is well supported and genuinely fascinating. We are all, to varying degrees, confabulating our pasts with complete confidence. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Mandela Effect, why thousands of people share the same false memories, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Mandela Effect ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.